We have an absolutely massive and highly urgent extreme weather alert for you right now, as the incredibly beautiful island of Saipan has just taken a completely terrifying and highly violent direct hit from the incredibly powerful Typhoon Sinlaku today. Emergency management officials operating on the absolute highest level of maximum alert watched in pure horrifying shock as this massive atmospheric beast violently aggressively slammed directly into the highly populated coastal communities, bringing completely blinding torrential rain and incredibly destructive screaming winds. The terrifying live video footage currently emerging from the deeply battered island shows completely massive ocean swells aggressively surging forcefully over the heavy concrete seawalls, actively turning normally highly peaceful tropical streets into incredibly dangerous, rapidly flowing deep water rivers. The sheer physical size and completely raw, concentrated power of this massive oceanic storm are absolutely staggering, violently aggressively reminding the entire global community of the absolute terrifying raw strength that Mother Nature completely easily commands over our fragile coastlines. To truly comprehend the absolute massive scale of this terrifying natural disaster, you must look closely at the completely devastating physical impact this violent typhoon is currently having on the incredibly hardworking local island infrastructure today. This massive violent storm has actively aggressively shredded the vital economic lifeblood of the entire region, violently tearing massive heavy roofs directly off local family homes and completely violently tossing incredibly heavy industrial shipping containers high through the air like completely weightless plastic toys. The violently aggressive weather pattern is also actively creating massive widespread logistical chaos, aggressively snapping incredibly thick heavy utility poles like tiny wooden twigs, and actively violently plunging tens of thousands of deeply isolated island residents into complete total terrifying darkness without any reliable cellular communication. While the absolute darkest and most violently aggressive part of the massive storm has finally slowly begun to pass, the immediate physical danger to the deeply exhausted public remains absolutely critically high across the entire island territory today. State officials and highly dedicated local law enforcement officers are currently actively establishing massive mandatory roadblocks, completely violently turning away any highly reckless drivers who foolishly attempt to forcefully bypass highly dangerous, deeply flooded intersections. Attempting to aggressively navigate these incredibly heavily flooded roadways right now is an absolute massive recipe for complete total disaster, as the highly murky and deeply contaminated water completely heavily obscures massive dangerous sinkholes, large washed-out sections of pavement, and heavy, sharp debris. You absolutely must logically completely turn around and never ever attempt to forcefully drive through any flooded streets, regardless of how incredibly shallow the dangerous water might initially appear to the naked eye, because it can literally completely wash your vehicle directly out to the open ocean. Medical experts are also violently actively warning every single resident to completely absolutely avoid touching any deeply contaminated floodwaters to aggressively prevent completely massive outbreaks of highly dangerous waterborne diseases. But amidst all of this completely massive physical destruction and absolutely terrifying weather chaos, a truly incredibly beautiful and deeply inspiring story of pure human resilience is actively aggressively emerging directly from the completely shattered streets of Saipan today. The incredibly tough and highly resilient local island families are absolutely not letting this massive violent storm completely break their powerful and completely unbreakable warm community spirit. Deeply incredible live video feeds are actively showing entirely massive groups of heavily exhausted neighbors actively coming completely together, violently aggressively clearing heavily blocked massive roadways, using only their bare hands and actively freely sharing incredibly vital emergency supplies with absolutely anyone who deeply desperately needs help. Brave local first responders and completely incredibly selfless civilian volunteers are actively working completely shoulder to shoulder, violently aggressively battling the heavy, treacherous conditions to actively forcefully ensure that absolutely every single vulnerable citizen is completely deeply safe and heavily protected with food and clean drinking water. The incredibly beautiful island of Saipan has completely historically faced absolutely massive, brutal tropical weather challenges before, but they have absolutely always completely aggressively bounced completely back, absolutely significantly stronger and vastly more united than ever before. As the dark, violent skies finally, slowly, carefully begin to clear across the massive Pacific Ocean, the incredibly heartbreaking, massive physical magnitude of this regional disaster is actively being completely heavily overshadowed by the absolutely incredibly massive glowing light of pure community hope. The entire global community is currently holding its collective breath, actively keeping these incredibly brave, hardworking island communities entirely in their deep thoughts and prayers tonight as they violently begin the incredibly, massively difficult process of aggressively rebuilding their beautiful tropical paradise from the absolute ground up. You absolutely must fundamentally stay completely highly vigilant and completely strictly informed as this completely monumental, inspiring recovery effort actively, violently continues to rapidly develop minute by minute. Hit that subscribe button right now, absolutely violently smash the notification bell, and stay completely tightly locked to our highly exclusive channel as we continuously aggressively bring you the absolute latest highly critical, uplifting updates directly from the incredibly resilient, beautiful island of Saipan.